Hey everybody, welcome back to another video. Hope you guys been enjoying the content channel as of late. Just been kind of late this week, not really a whole lot. Just kind of just just doing my thing. I got actually some probably a long night ahead of me because I got some stuff I gotta do at work. So we'll see how that all pans out. But in the meantime, I have this video and then I have another video tomorrow, and that should ride us out through the weekend. But this is very, very important. Not very important. Very big. Um, very big piece of news that came out in regards to Disney, and that is that there are some changings of the guard. Some new faces that will be taking over some of Disney's divisions and Disney itself, actually, as we'll show you in this article. But big headliner, of course, this week. Lucasfilm is getting some new leadership. The Star Wars company is getting some new leadership in the form of Dave Filoni and Len Brennan. Kathleen Kennedy, who has been the president of Star Wars Lucasfilm for the past 14 years. She is now stepping down, I think effective immediately, I believe sometime this week. So we're going to read a little bit here, and then we're going to do some little bit of a recap of sorts, talking about where things went for the past few years. So reading here, Kathleen Kennedy will end her 14-year run at Lucasfilm. She will be replaced by not one, but two executives when she leaves the Walt Disney Company this year. Chief Creative Officer Dave Filoni and President and General Manager Len Brennan will both lead the company behind Star Wars and Indiana Jones as it looks to recapture its stride. Filoni's elevation had been widely expected, but Brennan's promotion is something of a surprise. It suggests that Disney felt the need to pair a strong filmmaking force with someone with a firm sense of budgets and balance sheets. So basically, Dave Filoni being the creative, and Len Brennan is going to be the one handling the finances. Filoni has been named president and chief creative officer, and Brennan has been named co-president. So they're going to be sharing leadership, as they just illustrated. Their task will be to find ways to keep Star Wars fresh and relevant, as well as to deal with a fan base that can be very vocal when it feels that a film or series is departing too drastically from the canon. Basically, when fans are telling you guys, "Hey, you're not doing the Star Wars-y stuff." Filoni and Brennan will report to Alan Berkman, co-chairman of Disney Entertainment. Kennedy will continue to have a relationship with the company and will serve as a producer of the studio's next two theatrical films, The Mandalorian and Grogu and Star Wars Starfighter, which will hit theaters in 2026 and 2027. She will pursue other producing projects independently. So she still has ties to Lucasfilm, at least for this year and next year. But after that, she is officially walking away from Disney entirely and pursuing other projects independently. Now, we won't be getting into other details because it's going to basically talk about her whole deals with, with the company, how she was throughout those times. We're going to talk about that in a second, but something important to bring up that I feel like a lot of people aren't talking about is right here. In a statement provided by Disney CEO Bob Iger, who is also expected to leave his role this year. So it seems that we're also going to be getting a change in CEO this year as well. So it looks like Bob Iger might not be looking to renew his contract. Things are probably there's a lot of changes coming up this year for Disney, and probably needed changes because as we're going to lay out, there's been some needing of reshaping for the past couple of years. And we're going to examine Disney and Star Wars, how they've been for the past couple of years under these leaderships, and seeing what the future holds, and if the company can see a major comeback maybe in the next few years. So what I did is that I went through all the years that Bob Iger was president. Now, specifically when he came back, because Bob Iger had left the company, I believe, in 2019, and then he came back in 2022 because there was, I guess he wasn't happy with how I believe it was Bob Chapek, that was his name. He wasn't happy with how he was dealing the company at the time, and Disney themselves had issues with him. Mainly, when you look into it, it was a more of a political discourse. People were not happy with him in his political perspectives, and some people were, had not happy with how he was managing the company in that confine, which is ironic because a large part of people's issues today with Disney is in the political scene. So it's kind of ironic how that came full circle. Um, but I've looked at the years that Bob Iger was in charge, from 2022 to essentially now, and we'll see how this year looks, because this essentially is probably going to be his last year. So, as you can see, there was only a handful of films that really did well for Disney in the past couple of years. We had Barbarian, we had The Menu, we had Avatar: The Way of Water, Inside Out 2, Alien Romulus, A Real Plan, which was the Jesse Eisenberg feature, which was dirt cheap, Moana 2, Lilo and Stitch, Freakier Friday, and Zootopia 2. So 10 films. 10 films that Disney can be proud of that truly had went off to do, that truly made a profit for them, or truly saw a return on investment. Because remember, it is all about after ticket sales. Sorry, I just got cat hair all over me. Sorry, I'm a little stuffy right now. Um, Remember, it's all about after ticket sales. So it's always about after percentage cuts are taken into account, seeing how much the film is made at a certain point and how much that company can see coming back to them. Those 10 movies saw, a return on investment. Otherwise, yeah, yeah, yeah. It's been rough. It's been rough. Now, almost, I don't think any of their Marvel projects have really turned a dime. And I know that there's an argument to be made with a couple of these, which I'll, just bring up a few. Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness, when you actually look at it, and these are films, by the way, which I just kind of have realized this last night when doing some research. Um, Initial reports about production and marketing is not the same once everything is taken into account. Tax credits and amongst other things that pile on to the investment, those are not taken into account. So the initial reporting might not exactly hold further down the line. So in the case of Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness, that film was actually a lot more expensive than we initially thought it was. So when you take the actual production or the actual investment as a whole now and putting it onto how much that film made, it doesn't really hold up. Um, Thor: Love and Thunder, as it stood, I don't think really did well. I think it seemed like it did okay, but really it didn't. Same thing for Black Panther: Wakanda Forever. Actually, if when you even compare it to the original film, it's a step down. It was like $200 million short, from what the original made. So it was clearly a step down. Probably why also it's taking a little bit of time. I mean, I know that Ryan Coogler went off to do his own thing, did Sinners, but also culturally it's significant. That's why they're still doing it. But generally, it didn't do great once you consider, again, all of the stuff that I just mentioned. And then, other stuff that we know didn't do well, just as it stands. Ant-Man, the Wasp: Quantumania, we know didn't do well. Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 didn't do great. Again, because again, you have to consider marketing and production as it stands cut together. And when you put that together, a film like Guardians was like over 300 million, made about 800, so it's Like it's not great. And again, you have to consider percentage cuts. You have to consider ticket sales, theatrical, distribution, all those factors. The 800 million that they make does not go directly back to Disney. They make a fraction of that money. So when you consider that, it didn't do great. And then Deadpool Wolverine this is the only one that I'm a little 50-50 on. I don't I as far I mean it's not the price that we initially thought it was. It's like 300 something. There was tax credits that became involved. And just to be clear, tax credits are very wishy-washy. So they could mean something, but they also cannot. So Deadpool Wolverine, if tax credits were not involved, seemed to have did okay. But once you involve tax credits and other things on a part of that investment, it didn't do great. So, and then of course last year, which we've talked about, and Fire and Ash, as it stands, is not doing well. So it's not been great. It's not been great for Disney for the past few years, and uh, it's just ironic, given the issues that were with Bob Chapek. You know, I'm not saying that the political stuff has contributed to a lot of these failures. I mean, that's a small fraction of it. The larger discussions are obviously with the pandemic, obviously with fatigue that's going on within specific genres, and the lack of interest in the theatrical experience. All those things have contributed in the past couple of years. And Disney has yet to find its footing in this new age. So now let's look at specifically Kathleen Kennedy's 14 years. Let's look at how she had taken care of Star Wars. Now I'm including things that she herself did not produce, but as president of Lucasfilm, she had to at some point approve or look over, stuff that was under her 14 years. That includes television and films. So obviously, the sequel trilogy, and we're just talking financially here, and we'll talk about obviously the downsides that have come, in the many years for Star Wars and just generally for Disney and as a whole. And then we'll, see how what the future may hold. But just speaking financially here, Star Wars has not been in a bad place when it comes to when we're talking financially. It's not been a bad place. We had the sequel trilogy, obviously, Force Awakens, Last Jedi, Rise of Skywalker, all of which went off to do $1 billion. So big success there. And then you have Rogue One, a Star Wars story, which also did great. Um, and and then you get to their television sides, and animated wise, we had Star Wars Rebels, which that was a part of Kathleen Kennedy's 14 years. I mean, it was a show prior to her coming onto it, but there was many more seasons that were made during her term, during her 14 years. So it's a part of it. And being that it was producing, I think it was like 4 more seasons when I read. So it's like, that tells you that the show at least was doing well. At least it's the perception of it. Star Wars Visions has had like at least 3 seasons, and even spinning off one of those shorts into its own TV series. The Bad Batch, also another animated series. The first 2 seasons seem to have done well. And then of course, we get to the live action offerings, the ones that people will probably mention the most. Of course, we had The Mandalorian, which helped launch Disney Plus. The first 2 seasons seemed to have done well. And then, of course, we had Andor just as an entire package that seemed to have done well. I'm kind of wishy-washy on season 2, just because season 2, as far as I heard, was a major investment. So, and I think the viewership was down on that end. So I might just actually change that right now, actually, just because I think I remember hearing more things about that and on that end. So we'll just put that there. But yeah, at least the first season of Andor, I remember was well received, obviously, and I think that probably ended up doing okay. And then Ahsoka also seemed to have done okay. Um, Not great. I've not heard great things, but I've heard okay enough to at least where a second season is plausible. So, but then there are the downsides that came with Disney. Now, again, just strictly talking about financially here. Uh, Film wise, Solo was their biggest hiccup. Uh, that was in 2018. Uh, just didn't resonate, and I think that also that production was plagued by a lot of issues. There was originally Phil Lord and Chris Miller that were attached to it, and then they got fired, and then there was a reshaping. So it was just being uh, cooked for too long, and it just no one really seemed to care. Um, Mandalorian eventually fizzled out. Season 3 didn't really resonate. And then, as I just brought up, Andor Season 2, I think was more just a heavy investment, and I don't think it really had a strong viewership. Bad Batch Season 3, I'm just assuming, just because I read that Bad Batch just kind of was done, but it was never meant to be just 3 seasons as far as I could read. So, and then here we have what I think is the reason why Kathleen Kennedy has stepped down. All these other series that I'm about to mention are the live action offerings, and these are the ones that I feel that I've really cemented why she is probably stepping away. So, the Book of Boba Fett, I think, was probably the first financial indication that things are in trouble because Book of Boba Fett just kind of went nowhere, and not a whole lot of people really were talking about it when it came out. So I don't think viewership was high on that end. Same thing with Obi-Wan Kenobi. I don't think there was a lot of people really saying a whole lot. The Acolyte, which I know, which was the probably the biggest point of negativity when it came to Star Wars in her term. Skeleton Crew, which no one cared about. And then I'm putting Mandalorian and Grogu because I just don't see that really going anywhere. So I don't know. I don't necessarily know. So yeah, I guess we should also put Starfighter on here. I don't know where I'd put that. I'm gonna put it here actually. But yeah, if we count, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Sorry, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 successes compared to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Again, that was purely by coincidence. Um, Technically 8 because these have not come out yet. So, but pending potential failures. So we'll just bold that out just because. So as it stands, Star Wars financially has been fine. Star Wars has been more successful than failing in terms of financial stuff. Where things have been going wrong for them, and this is also an extension for Disney as well, it's been a lot more to do with how people have been perceiving the brands and the potential of where that could be leading down the pipe. And it's how it has been, especially recently, for the brand when it comes to that perception alone. Again, a lot of these series here that I just mentioned, Book of Boba Fett, Obi-Wan, Acolyte, Skeleton Crew, these are all very recent. So this is the most recent of Star Wars offerings. And they've not been doing well. All these collectively have not done well. And two of which actually were victims of major development hell because Boba Fett and Obi-Wan, at some point they were supposed to be feature films, and then they became television series. So they're just kind of getting tossed around. And I mean, that was also a big part of Kennedy's 14 years was just so much shit on the wall, just throwing shit on the wall and seeing that sticks. And a lot of it just didn't come to fruition. How many times do you guys remember hearing trilogies being announced? Ryan Johnson's got a trilogy coming out. The Game of Thrones guy's got a trilogy coming out. Like all these trilogies, none of them have come out, and none of them will ever come out. Um, and Then you have like a Ray film, which we don't even know what the hell is going on with that anymore. You know, all this stuff, right? and most of which is just been put either been just straight up canceled, or it's just being just sat around and hopefully being gonna be pushed forward. But I think that their reasoning for not doing anything right now is because they're scared of where things are financially for them. So they're letting these two features that are coming out right now, Mandalorian and Star Wars Starfighter, they're testing the waters there to see, is Star Wars back? Is Star Wars still a thing? And the answer, at least right now, is no, because currently, because look, yes, there are more successes with Star Wars, generally speaking, in the past 14 years. But if we're talking about the now, if we're talking about where things are right now with Star Wars, it's been on a decline because these are all the latest of Star Wars, and none of these have done well. Especially the Acolyte. The Acolyte was where things just kind of gone nuclear for the brand, because that's where a lot of people were negative on that show. Viewership was down, and then that was extended over to Skeleton Crew. Nobody cared to watch that. So even their thing that launched Disney Plus, The Mandalorian, just started to fade. And a lot of that also is fatigue, I believe, as well. Too much happening at the same time. 'Cause Star Wars decided to expand its offerings to television. Same thing that Marvel did, all Disney related. All being branched out to television programming, and it's just too much. It's just too much. Too much for people to watch. Too much for people to care about, and it's not catering to the majority also, because a lot of these shows are just, as far as I've been seeing a lot of self-indulgence, a lot of just practicing of what the company creatively wants to do, but not necessarily what their consumers necessarily want out of the brand. So there's been a lot of discourse with Star Wars, a lot of discourse over the past couple of years. The Last Jedi, of course, was where it all started. I remember when I was in the theater watching The Last Jedi, I literally felt that division in my audience, where half of it I could feel like, okay, cool. And there's other half that were just like, oh, okay, maybe there's issues here. Um, but again, went off to do $1 billion, right? So, so film wise, that's not been the issue. I mean, we'll see this year, where if that if that line still holds true. Probably not, because Mandalorian. We'll see. But television wise, that expansion has clearly not the smartest move, and obviously that falls to leadership, and Kathleen Kennedy is at the helm of that. So you can see where Kathleen Kennedy was needing to step down, or at least people have been calling for her to step down for a while, and you can see why that expansion was not a good idea for them, and why they're now going back to features, why they're reverting back to the theaters now. And as far as the future stands right now, uh, television wise, there's not a whole lot going on. I think that there's a second season for Ahsoka being planned out, and then maybe another season of Star of Visions, but that's it. That's it. They're pretty much abandoning the television programming and now moving back to the feature films, because it's just not been working. Now, when it comes to the future of just Disney in general, we're talking about Star Wars, we're talking about Marvel. Let's look at what this year specifically has to offer when it comes to the future. So, strictly just talking about 2026 here, this year. So, we have, of course, Disney has their slate, and as far as I can tell, anyway, it's not. It's still going to be a down year. It's still going to be a down year for them. And Lucasfilm, I think, is still going to be suffering. Mandalorian and Grogu, I don't have confidence that it's going to be a heavy hitter. I think that it's at best going to be around maybe Solo. I feel like it's going to be very soft, and I don't think it's going to end up really becoming profitable. That's my opinion on that. But uh, Disney, just generally speaking, might see some successes here and there. I'm expecting at least four. Ready or Not 2, I'm expecting that to do fine just because it's incredibly cheap. Toy Story 5, I think, is going to be probably doing well for them. Moana live action, I can see that doing fine. And Avengers Doomsday, I also think, is probably going to end up doing fine. But a large problem, which is a double edged sword, which I know that some people will not like hearing because it's the thing that they also like to bring up a lot, even though they're hypocrites when they do it. A lot of their original content is going to be slumming it, you know, and also it's again double edged sword because there's that part of that conversation where people will say all people do all the time is sequels, and it's sequels that people don't want. Case in point, here we have The Devil Wears Prada 2. I don't know who the hell is asking for another Devil Wears Prada. It's been like well over 20 years, and I don't think that film is as popular as they think it is. So, and then Super Troopers 3, because yeah, that's something that people really want. Um, so, and then of course, beyond that, there's just a lot of original content. You know, Hoppers, which I don't think is really going to do much of anything. Dog Stars, Ridley Scott's next film. I no, like all this sort of stuff is what people will be asking for, right? They do want original content from these major studios and stuff like that. The problem is that these people won't show up for them. They won't. Even if the content is quality wise good, if it's well received, people seem to like it, they won't show up for it. They won't. Look at all the things that I'm predicting are going to be successful. These are all franchises. Okay, none of these are original films. These are all franchises, and I think that a part of the spirit of the movie going experience today is that of familiarity. People want to see something that they are familiar with because they don't want to invest or take the gamble on watching something that is potentially bad. They don't want to be a stranger in the movie theater. They want to have familiarity when they're in the movie theater. So they're going to invest into something that they are automatically associated with because they also don't want to waste their money. So they're going to bet on something that is more familiar to them than anything else. And that's a large part of why Disney has been slumming it as well, just because a lot of their stuff that they've investing into has been either original based content, stuff that people do not want to see, a lot of sequels, like stuff that people are just not curious to see at all. And also when it comes to production, that's also been a big issue. Lots of spending on major projects, as we've talked about with all these Marvel movies, they are just huge in terms of cost, and so big to the point where it's not justifiable, and there's no way for them to actually clear any profit margins and to even see a decent return on investment. So, I mean, look at stuff that has done well for them. Alien Romulus, A Real Pain, Moana 2. These are all lower in terms of investments. Yeah, some of them are still hundreds of millions of dollars, but they're not as astronomical. The only outlier to that was Avatar: The Way of Water. But as we saw, Fire and Ash, same investment as The Way of Water was, has not been doing great. So that's only an outlier in this example. For the rest, falls in line with what I'm saying, where lowering the cost is also going to help you quite a bit. So yeah, it's a lot of just, I think, needing to be honest, because as it stands, the company has been hurting. They've been hurting a bit for the past couple of years. Last year was not great for them at all. There was a lot of failure there. Snow White, all their Marvel projects. Um, they had some upsides. Lilo and Stitch, Zootopia 2, all that jazz. But it's not to where the company is now all of a sudden in a much greater place. No, it's just it's little nuggets at the end of the day compared to a lot of the stuff that I had just shown you that has not done well and probably will not be doing well this year. You know, so I think that consumers need to be more honest, like more honest. Like, it's enough to just say we don't like what you're doing now. It's also important to just be frank about what you really want. Some people will say, "Oh, we want original films." Yes, we do. It's like, I think people want it because it's a part of a discussion. You know, they just want it as a part of a discussion, but they don't necessarily want to see those movies. You know, and that the past 4 years or so has been illustrative of that in Disney's front. A lot of those films that I just listed to you are original films, and people just don't care to see those movies. And the films that have done well are largely that of just franchises. I mean, if we take a peek at it real quick again, yeah, franchise, 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 franchise. There's only like three on here that have done well, and reasons for that is probably due to social media. Social media pushes for on these ends. Super low budget on this end. This is like $3 million from what I read. So it's a collective. It's social media. It's all those people there. And what they talk about and what they don't talk about, and largely of the times it's franchises and major IPs and licenses, all that stuff. That's what they talk about, and that's what they're more curious to see. So, so I think people just need to be more honest, just more frank, and hopefully, Disney will reevaluate and they'll notice that's where the interest lies, and capitalize and do better on those ends, so that they can see better results. So, and narrowing the cost down. Hopefully, with someone like Lennon Brennan, hopefully she steps up and helps with cost on Lucasfilm's end, and whoever is generally with Disney, hopefully they will, extend that behavior over to that as well, and hopefully just help weed out all the major costs going down on and just make things a lot more reasonable. But those are my thoughts on these impending changes for Disney. Lots of major changes happening for the company. You guys let me know. How do you guys feel about the changings of the guard? How do you guys feel about these new leadership, new leaders for Lucasfilm? Bob Iger also stepping down this year. Let me know. Do you think Disney is going to be seeing a comeback, or are we still seeing a downhill spiral for them? Let me know all your thoughts in the comment section below. And that's gonna be it for this video, guys. Thank you guys for tuning in. And until then, I'll catch you guys in the next video. Bye.